Hello and welcome to another great edition. I make that promise every show and I deliver every show. Another great edition of Beyond the Hype with Black Enterprise. I'm Alfred Edmond Jr., your host, Senior Vice President and Executive Editor at Black Enterprise. And our topic and our guest today is focused on something that is personally important to me, in addition to, a public stance on what it takes to advance and achieve entrepreneurially, professionally, economically, and that's about health. Health really is wealth. I know it rhymes and it's cliche, but particularly now, particularly as we move forward deep into the 21st century, particularly as we talk about the health disparities that was writ large during the COVID pandemic, and we realize that undergirds almost every other disparity. And as I say often in public addresses as well as on this show, it's hard to make money if you're sick or you're dead. Along with that, though, we're looking at the emergence of AI as a front and center topic. It's not really new, but it's really burst onto the public consciousness. And you're really talking about people on one end of the spectrum or the other. It's the greatest thing that's going to revolutionize our world, and it is. And oh my God, it's Terminator. And we're about to really have a hard time, maintaining our careers, living our lives, because AI is going to take over. We all know that with every new trend, the truth is on neither end of the spectrum. It all depends on us and how we approach it. Listen, my guest could be 5 different people. I'm going to try to condense it. But my guest today is Dr. Hassan Tetteh, MD. He's a 25-year retired Navy captain. He's a lung and heart surgeon. He's the CEO of Human Care Technologies. He's the author of several books, Gift of the Heart, The Art of Human Care, and his latest book, you might see it behind him on the screen. I have my copy right here, The Smarter Healthcare with AI, Harnessing Military Medicine to Revolutionize Healthcare for Everyone, Everywhere. Welcome to the show, Dr. Tetteh.
Very kind introduction, Alfred. Thank you so much for the kind invitation to be here and to visit with you and your guests and the Black Enterprise community. It's really an honor.
Yep. And the other thing I need to add, because I'm biased, is you're from Brooklyn, and I spent the first 21 years of my adult life in Brooklyn. My 3 older kids still live there, so Brooklyn's the best. If you came out of Brooklyn, I'm not surprised.
That's right. We have a little bit of a bias and definitely a common kinship there.
Yes, absolutely. And I come from a military family as well. In fact, my sister's a Navy veteran. I got to let her know I had you on the show. She'll be thrilled.
Well, thank you for your service. I know that it takes a village and a whole family to support that service member. So thank you for your service.
Air Force dad, Air Force uncle, Army aunt. I mean, yeah, military. We got every branch. But my sister's Navy, so I'm biased toward Navy.
Yeah, as am I.
Yeah. So listen, when we briefly spoke, when I asked you to be on the show, and you graciously took time to hop on the phone with me, and you were talking about the main one of the. I'm sure there's probably other messages you want to get through, but the main thing you really want to talk about with all of the hype, the theme of the show is to get beyond the hype around AI. And you sent me a Venn diagram that said there's everybody who's talking about it, which of course is a huge and expanding community, whether they know what they're talking about or not. That never stopped us before. Then there's a smaller but growing community. I've literally just joined that community this year that is now using AI in one shape, one way or form or another in their business or personal lives. Then there's you and a very small community of people who have built and are building AI. Talk about why that was front and center in your mind when you got invited on this show, and why it was important for you to share that Venn diagram with me. That you literally sent me a Venn diagram breaking it down.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. That's a great way to segue into something that I could use to channel my dad. My father passed away many years ago after I graduated from med school. So over 25 years ago, my dad passed away. I lost my mom 2 years ago. So, anyone knows that your parents leave a very indelible mark on you one way or the other, influence-wise. And my dad used to always tell me something about, what you should do and sort of your worldview of approaching life. And he would have this saying. He would say, Hassan, there's people that watch things happen. He said there's people, you probably heard a variation of this. There's people that watch things happen. There's people that make things happen. And then there's people that don't know what's happening. so, so he said, make sure in life, Hassan, you're part of that group that make things happen. And so it's with that I lead into the make things happen. I was just very fortunate to be in the right place at the right time. And you're right. I saw this visual. I'm an artist by nature. I wanted to be an artist actually when I grew up, and I got into art and design high school. You may know of that, growing up in New York. My dad, being an immigrant parent from West Africa, told me, "No, son, you're not going to art school because you're not making any money as an artist. So you're going to go to science and engineering school." So I went to Brooklyn Tech instead. But again, he left these impressions on me, and he said, "Make things happen." So I've always carried that with me, throughout my career in medicine, my career in the Navy, in the military. And I've been blessed to have these opportunities to do things where I was in a position to help make things happen with great teams. And so I showed you that Venn diagram because we're at this zeitgeist right now of AI. Right? Everyone's talking about AI, and everyone's, the buzz about AI, and you see it, everywhere. And the reality is AI has been around since 1950, decades ago. People weren't even talking about it. And when I took my job in the military, that really gave me that formative experience in AI. We, believe it or not, we're trying to convince our leadership and our community to be interested in AI. This was well before the sort of release of ChatGPT, which kind of burst AI on the scene and made it more in the psyche of everyone. So that's why I use that as a Venn diagram. So you can imagine I had a big circle where it said, these are the people that are talking about AI. There's like this many people that are using AI. And then there's little bit of people, a small amount of people that are actually building AI. And then I pointed a little arrow and I said, that's me and my team. We're building AI. And I had the opportunity to do that for the last, decade plus in the military, which was just a fascinating experience. And to do that in that environment, with the resources and with the sort of heft and the investment, it made the experience that much more consequential. And that's why the book is called Smarter Healthcare with AI, harnessing military medicine to revolutionize healthcare for everyone, everywhere. And I'll just say this one last thing. For those of the, your audience members that are listening, make sure you're not part of that group that don't know what's happening. Okay. So let's talk about beyond the hype. There's a lot of talk about AI. Artificial intelligence is a tool. And no matter how you define it, it is still a tool fundamentally. I mean, that is at the end of the day what it is. It is created by humans. At least right now, that's a good thing. Right. Carbon-based beings like ourselves are still the dominant, species on Earth. That may change someday. Perhaps it'll be silicon-based. I don't know. But for now, that's the case. And you have to regard it as a tool. And as I have conversations about AI and I talk about AI and I sort of bring in and introduce my experience in it, I always like to keep that perspective. And I also like to also say that AI is a rapidly evolving technology. And in so much as a rapidly evolving technology, it is going to be defined a myriad of ways by different people, depending on how they experience it. There was a time when a washing machine was considered AI and people were scared of that. So if you want to broadly define what AI is, it's something, a machine that mimics human behavior. Okay. And that's a broad swath of a definition. That can include almost anything. And people are marveling when they say, well, I heard about this AI. I heard people talking about it, but I don't use AI. And then Alfred, they'll open up their phone with their face and see, I don't know. I'm like, you just used AI. So again, it's different things for many people, but that's why I'm just so happy we're having this conversation. But I led with that because I wanted to sort of give you the perspective of where my experience is coming from and what guides and sort of dictates and really what drives not only my passion, but the things I write and speak about.
Well, I'm a generation or two ahead of you, but I've seen, first of all, just as a note, my degrees in studio art that I never, if I had a different parent, I might have been told not to do it. I ended up going to journalism, but I definitely identify I'm still an artist at heart. But, I've seen waves as someone who's a generation or maybe two generations ahead of you of the same cycle. A new technology emerges. The vast majority of people say, no, 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 no. In journalism, I remember when somebody was like, "You will take my hands off of this typewriter to use that computer with, I'll grip this with my cold dead hands before I let this go." And the whole resistance to electronic media, electronic journalism, during my early years coming out of college and pursuing this profession. So I've seen this movie where people say, "Never, never, never. This is a horrible thing," and then they're using it before they know it, and then it's like, "How did I live without it?" You can see that rapidly. Of course, each wave of that technology, that cycle happens faster and faster and faster. The adoption happens faster and faster. But still, I've seen it before. But the other thing as I've been reading your book and people talk about you and the unique path that you've taken to become the person you are, one of the promises that I think your book makes the point of, and AI in general, when we talk about the promise of AI makes, is that the more you can, for lack of a better word, offload those things that that offload those things that humans are doing now, but if AI could do it, humans could go back to doing what they do best. The better it is for all of us. And in the case of you being a doctor, and I kept seeing over and over again, your bedside manner, this idea that doctors and nurses can now get back to doing what makes a great doctor and nurse, the actual care, the actual attention that's now being sucked away by administrative tasks and billing, and so I kind of want you to dive into your experience as a patient when you had bacterial meningitis, and I'm with a prostate cancer. I don't want to say survivor. I experienced prostate cancer 15 years ago, and once you have a true patient experience that says, "Oh my God," it changes your perspective. But that's all made you a better physician in terms of understanding the heart of what healthcare is supposed to be about, despite all of the administrative and burgeoning political, economic. I mean, the healthcare conversation obviously is a huge, difficult beast to tame for us as a society. But I love the way both the people that talk about you and you talk about your own experiences about staying at the heart of what made you become a doctor in the first place, and the patient experience and better care for patients being one of the ultimate promises of AI. When you're talking about wrestling with all this Rubik's cube of what constitutes great healthcare.
Yeah, no, I can absolutely speak to that. It again is one of these experiences, like many that people have in life, that really defines, how they show up in life, right? You have something bad, catastrophic, you have something good or great that happens. And all of those experiences shape your life. I gave I gave a talk yesterday at one of the medical schools here in DC, George Washington University. And this is going to tie into the question you asked about, why am I the kind of person that I am right now? And how did this, experience or the experiences collectively sort of influence my philosophy on healthcare? And the student asked, do I have any regrets in life? And I told him something that evolved as an answer. And I told him that. I said, if you'd asked me that question probably 10 years ago, I would have said, oh yeah, I really wish I didn't fail this class, or I really wish, I should have went to this school instead of that school. I wish I had, I don't know, maybe I should have gone to this place, or I should have visited this, I said, no, but I'm in a place right now where I don't have any of those regrets, because now I have the wisdom to realize that everything that happened holistically in my life brought me to this very moment in time to be prepared to answer the question the way I'm going to answer your question, which is no, I have no regrets. I have no regrets, because every one of those experiences was a learning experience, good, bad, or indifferent. Each one of those was principally a learning experience. The things that happened that were terrible, the things that happened that were great, I learned from all of those experiences, and each one of those things helped define the person I am right now, to have my worldview, thoughts, and to be able to share this, this answer with you. So in that way, you're right. As an undergrad, Alfred, so third year undergrad, biochemistry major, super excited, very young, invincible, thought I knew it all. What happened to me? I applied to medical school, actually, early decision, Johns Hopkins. I went to a small arts and science college upstate New York, very good college, but this was not like the mass production of medical students from this institution, but it was a very good school. I had a great education there. But when I got an early decision interview invitation to Johns Hopkins, the premier med school, arguably ever, I said, wow, this is great. I go down there, I have a fantastic interview, and I think I knock it out of the park. And literally a week later, I'm deathly ill. I mean, I feel like I have the worst flu in my life. I feel like someone has my head in a vice, just squeezing. My neck is stiff. It's rigid. I'm in so much pain. And I go to the infirmary and they diagnose me incorrectly, by the way, with the stomach virus. And, I was a resident assistant, an RA at the time. So I had a single, so no roommates. This was well before the age of cell phones and things like that. So I'm holed up in my room over the weekend. My fraternity, I'm a member of Phi Beta Sigma fraternity, Go Blue, had a big event that weekend. And my fraternity brothers were, I'm sure, looking for me. And they were like, where'd this guy go? He's skirting out of his responsibilities. And I was Alfred, I was dying in my dorm room. That's what was happening. I was dying in my dorm, literally. And they found me late at night on a Friday, took me to the hospital. And I don't remember a lot of this. I remember like glimpses of things. But suffice to say, I spent about 2 weeks plus in the hospital. I had a tube in every orifice of my body. So when you say you know what it feels like to be a patient, I tell this all the time. I said, a patient is when you're in that vulnerable position. When you go to the ER with a sprained ankle, you're not really a patient. You're kind of visiting. When you go into the OR,
you're just getting services done. It's like a service provider.
You go get your annual checkup. That's not being a patient. You're just kind of passing through. But when you're in a hospital in a vulnerable position, unconscious, perhaps, unable to do things for yourself, arguably confused, scared, and very uncertain about.
And in your case, you didn't know what was happening because
you didn't know what was happening.
First. Right.
No. And then when I did start, realizing what was happening and understood and appreciated the gravity of the situation, I realized I had a deathly ill infection. I could have died. In fact, I should have died. Statistically, most people die from this infection when it's not treated. And in my case, there was arguably a little bit of a delay in treatment because of the diagnosis that was not, correct at the time. All that to say, that was as a medical student. And then subsequent to that, I'm thinking in my mind, the only thing keeping me alive is I got into Johns Hopkins Medical School, so I got to stay alive. I got something to live for. I can't die. This inconvenience of this bacterial meningitis is getting in the way of me becoming a doctor, which is what I've been working all these years for. Well, Alfred, I get out of the hospital with a little bit of hearing loss and some other sequelae and complications from that. And I'm waiting for my acceptance letter from Hopkins. But what happens? I get a rejection letter instead, and I was devastated. Now, you take that snapshot in time, right? And you're like, oh my gosh, that was terrible. I almost died, didn't get accepted into medical school. But those were the moments, those were the types of things that defined and helped to create the person I am right now. Because subsequent to that, I reapplied now in the traditional way. I got a ton of rejection letters, but I ultimately got accepted into one school, which was fantastic. It was great. I went back to Brooklyn, hometown, downstate, and that's where I did my medical training for medical school and stayed there for residency. And that was meant to be. It was a great place to train. But that experience that I had of being that patient, every time I would, engage or interact with patients, I almost get like a chill or a shiver in my body. Like I feel it because I know what it was like to be in that bed with the gown that doesn't close and you're all exposed and to be unconscious and to be worried and to be scared and frightened. And I think, Alfred, what that gave me was this tremendous sense of empathy that I've never lost. And I think that served me well to be the kind of doctor that I am right now. Fortunately, lots of people go through their entire, training of becoming a doctor and even their practice of being a physician without ever being in the shoes of the patient. And I'm not suggesting everyone should get a serious illness or anything like that. But certainly having that experience gives me that type of empathy. And I know what it's like to be in your shoes, Mr. Johnson. I know what it's like to be in your shoes, Mrs. Smith, because I was there. Now, I don't tell them that, but I feel that. And impacts how I communicate with people and how I show up at the bedside and how I show up in the OR and how I show up with their family members. Because I'm thinking to myself, oh my gosh, they must be thinking the same thing that my mom was thinking when she gets a call in the middle of the night and says, you need to come because your son is unresponsive and we don't know what he has. I mean, can you imagine getting a call like that? What do you do? So that's why I try and show up with that background, and that is always something that I carry, that experience in all of my engagements with my family, with my patients' family members, with the patients, and so forth. So that sort of shaped my worldview. Now, when it comes to this technology and AI and this tool, you might be saying, well, what is the bridge there? How did that happen? And again, that was just it just happened over time, and with my natural curiosity, all the while thinking about things that were instilled in me through parents, through teachers, through mentors, through friends. My dad always saying, be aware, kind of look over the horizon and see what's going on. Don't put your head in the sand like an ostrich and not be aware of what's happening, right? Kind of what you were just talking about when you said, we have to look beyond the hype sometimes and just have this sort of, perspective of like, all right, where are the trends? What are the things I should be learning about? What are the things I should be interested in about? What are the things I should really be focused on? Because here's the last thing I'll end with this, sort of line of answering is this. And when I was in that position of being helpless, being anxious, on death's bed, so to speak, I realized that, you know what? Nothing else matters right now. And that's why your point is so poignant. Health is your greatest wealth. Health is your greatest wealth. So there's a quote that I came across, and I'll end with this, that never ceased to, resonate with me because I experienced what he was talking about. There was a famous physician called Herophilus from back in the day, so to speak. And he had a quote that I think embodies what you're talking about. When health is absent, wisdom cannot reveal itself. Strength cannot fight. Wealth becomes useless, and intelligence cannot be applied. Can you imagine? That right there tells you everything you need to know about your health.
Man, you're singing.
When you're not healthy, nothing matters. Nothing else matters. And that's why I always start sometimes in some of these conversations I have with, like, how many of you have been really sick? You get a few hands up. How many of you have been so sick you couldn't do anything else? What was the most important thing at that point? It was getting better. You could take the richest person on earth right now, and you take away their health, they'd give all their wealth away just to be able to be healthy again. So, I take it as a great privilege and honor that I've had this opportunity over my lifetime in various ways to help restore health and well-being to people and inspire them to be healthy, because I know that when you are healthy, now you can start doing all the other things that you were put on this earth to do. And yeah.
You hit on so many notes that go right to the heart of what I'm passionate about in my work, in my life. But I want to kind of connect two things: the question of patient experience and the equities or inequities that may exist in those experiences, and the potential of AI to revolutionize that, both in individual experience as well as the broader healthcare infrastructure that we struggle with as a society, as a world, as a nation. And I want to say a couple of things. One, I'm someone who I was raised in a working poor household in a working class community by a divorced single mother. So for the first 33 years of my life, healthcare was the free health clinic. It was probably the lowest quality healthcare you could get, and my job was to stay out of it. To do what I could do. My mother, to just, I didn't trust the system. I didn't want to be part of the system. And I was at that spectrum where healthcare was poor or non-existent. Had a transformational experience when my son was born about wanting to be able to play basketball. My original health goal was, when he's 16, I want to be able to play basketball in the driveway with him. And that meant changing a whole different, mindset around what it meant to care for myself. And I'll give you the really abbreviated version. And so I will say this: when I got diagnosed with prostate cancer, ultimately at age 49, and lived with it in terms of age 50, because of the quality of the healthcare that I had been enjoying. I mean, I'm at the other end of the spectrum. Great health insurance coverage. Black Enterprise always gave us the best of everything. Great primary physician, great specialist and the urologist that I was referred to, great surgeon when I ultimately had my surgery. And ultimately, when we talk about patient experience, I actually never got sick. Like they discovered it so early. I had no symptoms. We had the luxury of watching it and just kind of monitoring until I decided what I wanted to do. The surgery was so easy, in part because I'm in great physical shape, that recovering for the surgery really only took 2 days. I didn't miss any work. Kind of took Thanksgiving break, went back to work. And now, Dr. Tetteh, sometimes I have to remind myself it happened because I never had any of the physical trauma. Now, did I have the psychological worry? Oh my God, I have cancer in my body, and I had to wrestle to some degree with that. But from a physical, experiential standpoint, nothing happened. In fact, I had an appendectomy 10 years before that. That was a lot more traumatic, a lot more painful, a lot more suffering in terms of the appendicitis symptoms being very obvious before I finally figured out what it was and got it taken care of. That was a lot more traumatic than the cancer diagnosis, which socially speaking says, oh my God, that was such a horrible thing. It was almost a non-event. But that was all about the quality of the care I had access to, the ability to kind of navigate this with great physicians such as yourself that knew how to, the whole nine of what we expect or want everyone to happen. And I'll put a period on that and just say one more thing. One of the things that hit me in the book that was mentioned in the book was this whole idea that there are 1.5 billion people who are just totally outside like healthcare and will never meet. Like there's no, so they're not going to be part of clinical trials. They're not going to be part of any research. 1.5 billion people in the world who are just totally forget about bad healthcare, like, and what that means for all of us, even if we have good healthcare. So, one of the again, the book covers so many different things, and of course, you're talking also military medicine and its applications for the healthcare outcome for all of us. But you just talk to me about the range of patient experience and how part of the revolution that AI could deliver if we harness it properly is to expand and I hate using this word because I think it's overused, but democratize the quality of care because it's easier to just get it to everyone in a way that right now, as we're currently structured, is almost impossible to do.
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, you just spoke on so many things. Let me unpack some of that, and in doing so, hopefully address the question you just asked, which is a great one. How do you democratize care for more people? But, before even that, what is this tool capable of doing? Again, so let's go back to our Venn diagram. A lot of people talking about it, right? Okay, there's a lot of noise. There's some people that are using it, so they're understanding, appreciating it, and there's very little people that are building it. Now, think about that, though. The people building it, they don't have the worldview of everybody, right? They're building these solutions and applications from their perspective, from their worldview. So think about that. If they're not from certain communities, if they're not from certain, geographies, if they don't have certain experiences, lived life, shared experiences, they're not even going to have an awareness of what they should be building tools for, or that may have any applicability to certain individuals. So let's just start with that, right? That there kind of addresses your question of like, how is this tool going to be used or not used to help or not help individuals? And then I go back to this tool again, and I want to really emphasize and bring home that AI is a tool. It's a very powerful tool. And I like to share with people that this tool is kind of like a general purpose technology. It is a general purpose technology. And the difference between like the typewriter and the example you gave, that's kind of a specific purpose technology, right? You're going to type and, you're going to get a product from that. But with AI, you can do that. You can use that tool for lots of different things, right? It's like you think of it as a hammer, like a tool. Like you can take that hammer and you can build a doghouse, or you could build a cathedral. Well, with AI, you could build, millions of dog houses or, a planet of cathedrals. I mean, you have that much more power and potential. And when you think about the people that were using the candle, right, at the turn of the century, a couple years, many decades ago, and this new tool came on board that people were calling electricity. They had some people that were, the sort of slower adopters. They were like, I don't know about that electricity thing. Seems a little dangerous. I see people getting burned and electrocuted. I'm not really sure. I think it's a fad. It'll probably go away. I'm going to stick with the candle.
Right.
You know how that worked out, right?
Right.
So this is why I think, again, I'm kind of going to emphasize again that this tool is one of those general purpose technologies that is going to continue to evolve and be a part of our lives. So much so that at some point it's just going to be in the background working and we're not even going to be aware of it, just like electricity until we lose it. And
Right.
then we're all like, wait a minute, why'd the lights go out?
Right. Right.
Now, when it comes to healthcare, again, this tool is very powerful. And that's what I talk about in the book, because this tool, it happens to be fueled on data, right? And information to build algorithms to help, design these models that will now be used and implemented into platforms and give us these great outputs like facial recognition, like making a diagnostic decision on an x-ray, or taking a myriad of information from your health record over a number of years and saying, hey, this was probably the likely diagnosis based on all of these patient visits and encounters, and this should be the therapy you should have. Those are great things, right? So people get nervous and they're like, well, is it going to replace the doctor? I don't want it to replace the doctor. I like my doctor. Well, it shouldn't. And doctors shouldn't be afraid of the technology. Just like I tell them, you should embrace the technology. Don't be afraid of AI replacing you as a doctor, but be afraid of AI being used by a doctor replacing you that's not using AI. So if you're an AI, if you're using AI as a doctor, that's great. It should augment your practice. It should make you a better doctor. It should give you resources and information in a more streamlined and efficient and effective way than you didn't have before. If you're able to bring up information on a patient's chart and get insight on it, and you don't have to spend a lot of time looking in the old records and then having them bring a CD or a facsimile from some other place, and you can just query a record and get information, or it actually just be delivered to you while you're at that time having an engagement with the patient, it gives you, hopefully, as a clinician, as a nurse, as a healthcare provider, the opportunity to say, hey, Alfred, let's just have a conversation. Tell me what's going on. And perhaps you could use AI to capture that conversation in a recording. And so that at the end of that conversation, just like, people that use Copilot and things like that now can see at the end of a meeting, like, we have a summary of it. And now, by the way, that summary not only talks about what we talked about, not only highlighted the diagnosis, but maybe gave some instructions on the plan of what the care is and what the next steps are, and some questions and follow-up action items that the patient and the doctor need to sort of address. That's the kind of liberating impact that the AI can have on our engagement, on our encounter when that physician and that patient get together, when there's that just a little bit of time, but hopefully enough time to really get some insight and to understand why that patient has come to me or come to their healthcare provider. That's the way this should be looked at. And that's why I like to, say I'm enthusiastic about it. I'm excited about it, because I think the technology, AI as a tool, can actually be leveraged so that we can be more human in our connection with our patients, and our patients can have more of a human connection with us. I know that sounds counterintuitive. You're like, wait a minute, how is that going to happen? It's going to happen by all the reasons that I just said, if the tool is applied and used effectively. But here's the other thing. One last thing to end with. You talked about democratizing the care. It absolutely can do that. And the reason why it can do that is because, unlike all the other times that existed before, we have a convergence of things that are unlike any other time before. I call them super forces. and just bear with me here. Super forces, the super forces that I'd like to like highlight right now here in 2025 for us are, there's a lot of data and connectivity, right? We have that. That's a super force, unlike any we had before. We're creating data every day. We also have a lot of commercial and government investments, right? You're talking about billions and billions of dollars being invested in this technology. We also have a plethora of policy that has actually, I live in Washington, D.C. area here. So there's been a plethora of policies that actually have enabled things to happen unlike any other time before. The pandemic sort of accelerated that. The ability to have telemedicine be a reimbursable activity for doctors. That's great. Now you and I can visit in a way that, there was no incentive to do that before. We wanted you to come into the hospital, fight for parking, and come sit in the office just so I could refill your script. But now you can do it in different ways, So we have data connectivity, we have investments, we have health policy, right? We also have computing power and sensors, right? And these things can give us information continuously. You have high blood pressure, instead of getting one blood pressure reading, maybe, every 3 or 4 months when you see your doctor, because you're not measuring it at home because you don't have a machine that works, or, it's not the right size cuff, you can have something on your wrist, like I do, my watch, right? That's continually measuring pulse and looking for arrhythmias and blood pressure and oxygen saturation, all these things. And the computing power to sort of sift through all of that. And then the final superpower we have is people. And this is where I think this is going to democratize the care that you're talking about, because the people, Alfred, people are the most important super force in this digital era that we're living in of healthcare. Because we're all walking around, billions and billions of us, with this super computer in our pocket. Right? That can bring us information, that's entertaining us, that's distracting us, that's living with us, that's doing all of these things, but that's always with us.
And in fairness, it's not just what it's doing, quote unquote, chewing with us. It's given us the power to influence others. It's not just one way.
It's not just one way.
I got a TV studio sitting in front of me on my desk, and I have another one in my pocket. Like you said, you're right. I agree.
It's that two-way, bi-directional way of communicating, but not just communicating, multimedia communication. I can send you pictures and videos. I can send you information. I can send you a tome of information in a way that I could never do that before. And because of that, what I believe is possible, and we're starting to see that evolve even more, is this ability to provide care to people in a way they could never get it before.
So here's about everything you've said. Again, I'm one of those people. If you had this conversation with me 3 years ago, certainly before the pandemic, I'd have been in that, like you said, that camp that's like, no, bro, I'm not feeling that. No. But again, because I am fascinated and have been for most of my adult life with this mission. Now, I'm using myself as a guinea pig almost. When people ask why I do what I do, it's like one of the questions I've said, how long and how well could I live if I intentionally tried to lean into this idea? I mean, I've never smoked. I rarely drink, but this year I decided I'm not going to drink anymore. Suppose I took everything that I knew and everything that we know, and of course there are things we know now that we didn't know 20 years ago, whatever. How long could I possibly live, and how well could I live? So I'm on this kind of health and longevity thing. And I said, if health is the foundation of wealth, or if health is wealth, then the ultimate currency is time. Like, no matter what, we all got the same 24 hours. And so when you talk about what AI can do for people, what it does is buy you time. So that as a physician, you have time to focus on the patient, because you're not spending 2 hours going through patient records or waiting for the patient records, because, like you said, they're on pieces of paper and they're on, spread out. No, I can look. Oh, I got everything I need. So I read a book last year by Peter Attia, MD. It was called Outlive the Science of Art of Longevity.
I knew you were going to go there.
Yeah, yeah. And it changed my whole mind. And it was recommended to me by another doctor, Dr. Kalina Tuggle, who's a bariatric surgeon in Atlanta, who spoke at
Yeah.
one of our events. And I'm circling this back to this appreciation for AI in a way that I wouldn't have and didn't as recently as 2 years ago, which is the reams of information we now have, whether it's mapping out the human genome and what different types of proteins are available and what they do in your body. I mean, like the amount of data in the human body is voluminous. Like, and finally, we reached a point in human history where we, like you said, we have the computing power and the ability to distill that data in such a way that, like you said, not only is the care higher quality, but the care can be literally specifically personalized to me, you know, to the way my brain works. And we already know some of the shortfalls, for example, of clinical trials. If there's large swaths of, you know, of underrepresentation or no representation, so that even when treatments are developed, they can't possibly be effective for all populations because it only can work with the data that's collected in the clinical trial. So I mean, I'm going all the way around the mulberry bush to talk about how I am now sold on this idea that the more data is in the system and the more power we have to process it, the more time we buy to do what we do best, which is to be human. To in your case, to be a doctor that can spend, if you got 10 hours with a patient, 8 hours is actually caring for the patient, and 2 hours is doing the other things that have to be done for that care to be executed. I mean, am I making any kind of sense?
You're making complete sense. And actually, this is a perfect time. I know our time is coming to an end here. This is a perfect time for me to introduce that framework that I, you know, so studiously and hopefully elegantly put out in the book, which is that VP4 framework. And this is be a good way and sort of to take the take home message for your audience. I mean, we're talking about AI and we're talking about health, we're talking about wellness, but I try to apply something or provide something, if you will, a framework, which is just really a way of making something really complicated simple or simpler, right? And this VP4 framework that I have, again, is informed by a lot of different things. And I go into the book about how all those elements come to be. But VP4 stands for purpose, personalization, partnership, and the last P is productivity. The VP, think of like a VP, like, you know, we know what VPs do, vice presidents. They're usually assisting the person in charge. Well, think about you as the agent and having agency and being the person in charge. You as the individual. You talked about personalized, right? You the individual. I would impress upon your audience, if you are not doing so yet, or if you've never done it before, use AI. Use it. Be part of that smaller circle, and then eventually, hopefully, make even the small circle where you're building things as well. But use AI. Use AI with this VP4 framework in mind, meaning the tool is an assistant for you. It's to help you realize your purpose. It can be personalized to you, right? It's your partner, and it helps you to be more productive. And I'm going to give you a concrete visual example so you understand what I mean by this. You know, writing an email, right? That's an easy one. Everyone was like, oh, you can use the AI to write an email. Okay, that's cool. But this is something you'll be interested in, Alfred. So you talked about, you know, your fitness goals and what you have. Well, I feel the same way. I have different goals. Mine is sort of the endurance sport. Alfred, for the first time ever in my life, I got to do something that was on the bucket list of mine for decades. I completed a full Ironman in November in Arizona. Now, many people are like, what is that? I don't know. But for those in your audience that don't know, look it up. But it's a 2.4 mile swim, 112 mile bike, and then a full marathon all in one day, kind of with transitions, and you have cutoff time to do it. Well, I'm going to use my VP4 framework and tell you how AI helped me to accomplish that. Now, obviously, I had to put in the work. I had to pay the water bill, like my swim coach tells me. I had to pay the bike tax, like my bike coach tells me. And I had to rent the run, because you never own the run. You just gotta put in the work, and you just do it. But I had numerous coaches. They would communicate with me on this platform. They would personalize workouts for me. it was based on me, right? They knew my purpose, my goal was I wanted this very, very hard thing to be accomplished, which was to do an Ironman. And they had to put in nutrition for me. They had to take into account when I was working, when I was able to sleep, when I was able to rest, when I was able to, work out because I was traveling. Like all of that stuff was built into a personalized plan for me. And what AI allowed us to do is work on platforms and have this partnership where, they could intervene when I was sort of like, hey, you're probably doing a little bit too much here. You don't want to risk an injury. Let's back off on that. Let's do this instead. And all the while I'm getting a lot of information, and that information is being filtered so that it's being presented to me in a way that's personalized for me. So it helped me to achieve my purpose, helped me to personalize a plan and a program for me. You're taking into account rest, nutrition, all of these things, endurance, strength training, like it's a lot, right? You put it all together. And of course, it helped to bring together and weave this, platform of partnership where we could all work together. I mean, it was just amazing. All the while I was being more productive, right? I could be very specific in how I was allocating my time to certain activities. Like, I could say, all right, I got to spend this much time this week on the run, this much time on the bike. And oh, by the way, life is happening, right? Yeah. I still got to go to, events with my wife and my kids. I still got to go to work. I still got to show up for my business meetings. I still got to do all the things that you do as a human being living in modernity.
But even in that, there's a spillover effect because you're more productive and more alert and more present in those activities. I experienced what you did on a smaller scale. So again, my sport is natural bodybuilding. I did it from my late 30s till my early 40s, but I was doing it all on my own. Like I said, it's kind of no feedback, just, feeling my way along, et cetera. Right. Went back to it at age 57. And to your point, my coaches in Maryland, I didn't even use a coach before. He was like, he knew me well enough. We've been friends for like 20-something years. He put together, like you said, a personalized plan. And then he told me to my face, he's like, if you're not doing this plan, I don't need you to tell me. I'm going to be able to tell you you're not doing it.
Exactly.
Because the data and the feedback is going to tell me you're not doing it.
Right.
It's not going to be a matter of, you don't got to weigh yourself. I don't need any of that. So the instantaneous feedback about, like you said, tailored, responsive, and because I wasn't feeling my way along, I wasn't wasting time on things I didn't have to. But if you fast forward, I've won 2 Masters Pro cards, because he said, if you do this, 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 and this, that's going to be the result. It's not a guess. It's not a hope. It's going to happen because now these variables are monitored and I'm doing a very rudimentary job of explaining the difference between those two experiences and how I have approached my life, my fitness life, with a lot more certainty than I did when I was kind of feeling my way along. And I'll just leave this with the whole thing about coaching with, and having access to great coaching remotely and using AI and other, tools. I tell people, when you look at the best in the world at what they do, and, so I do some coaching for entrepreneurs and in my outside BE life, and they're like, oh, why do you need a coach? I'm like, well, Tom Brady needed a coach. LeBron James needs a coach. Serena Williams needs a coach. And by the way, the coach may not be able to even do what they do, but the coach can see what they can't see, Yeah. And so this whole idea of leveraging, I want you to run through the VP4 framework again. And guys, you got to get this book. I got to tell you, not because you want to be a doctor, not necessarily because you're in the military or you want to be, but again, this whole conversation, this framework applies to better healthcare, better living, and an understanding of how to leverage the tools of AI in a way, to make it deliver on the promise that it offers in a variety of areas, healthcare being one of the most important ones.
Absolutely. I think your example of how you used all these tools, the platform, and your coach being a partner, leveraging AI to achieve your goals. That's how we should look at it for healthcare. Everyone wants to be healthy, but people managing chronic illnesses, people managing significant illness, cancer, etc. think about how you can again use this framework, and I'll just say it again, VP4, think about AI as your tool to assist you. You are the person of agency, right? You're in charge. Think about having this as being your companion, your vice president, your sort of helper that can help you achieve what is your goal, what is your purpose, right? Your goal is to be healthy. Your goal is to accomplish a fitness, goal, to live longer, channeling, Dr. Atia, he talks about this, how, you need a partnership of people working in concert to sort of help personalize your care, right? That's that other P in this. Personalization comes from taking information specific to you that's being gathered on a daily basis with sensors and the compute power and all those things, again, being integrated into a plan for you. The partnership comes with, all the people that you need to take care of things. I realize, and anybody that played sports realizes this, especially team sports, that nothing great happens, as an individual. You need a partner of people. You need the partnership to bring out the best in an individual, and a team, and an organization, in society, right? You need that partnership. Nothing great happens without that partnership. And for then again, if I could just leave this message for your audience, is that please use AI. And if you're using AI now, use it even more. Get to become familiar with it. Because it's going to make you more productive in so many ways. And the only way you're going to appreciate that is by using it. You're going to sort of say, hey, this was my pre-AI using state in life, and this is my post-AI use, and state and station in life. And it's just going to continue to evolve, because the AI we're using right now, I'll leave you with this, is the worst AI you'll ever use. It's just going to get better. A year from now, we'll be having a conversation, Alfred, and we'll say, can you imagine what we were doing in 2025? That was terrible. That AI was awful. It's so much better now. And that's just going to happen because, again, those 5 super forces are not going to relent. There's going to be data. There's going to be compute power. There's going to be the sensors still. There's going to be people working on this technology to make it better. There's going to continue to be investments. And those 5 super forces are going to continue to push this technology and have this tool become better and better every day. So please use the AI. Don't be a part of that group that don't know what's happening. Definitely don't be that group. Try and be the group that's making things happen. And you'll find that, this is sort of the enlightenment right now. We don't want to be the folks that are like the candle users. Candlelight's great. I like it for romantic nights and nice dinner and things like that. But
on a daily basis, I want to flip the lights on. Can I flip the lights?
Yeah. Let's embrace this technology, and I think if your audience can do that, and I try and share some tools and perspectives on how to do that more effectively, I think that they'll find that their lives will become ideally better, and certainly there are risks, and we didn't get into all of those things, but there's risk with everything, man. There's risk with getting up and going out to work every day.
Actually, I've learned there's risk for not doing anything. Not doing anything is often the bigger risk.
Right. Sometimes the risks are greater for not doing something than not for doing something. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
I got a whole bunch of topics in front of me that I wanted to hit, because we talk about data and health, and we didn't even get into brain health, which I'm very passionate about, and cognitive health, because now that we're living longer, cognitive health is a bigger issue than it might have been when people pretty much died by the time they were 70. Mental health, and I talk about the military applications of AI to help predict suicidal ideation and service people, which is actually a big deal for anybody who's a veteran. We can go all over the place. I'm probably going to
say all that means is I just got to come back and talk. You got to come back.
That is my point. I got to bring you back, because this is so important, but so big, with so many great applications to the betterment of people's lives. So I just, before I let you totally go, what's the best way for people to stay on top of? I don't know whether obviously we want people to get your book, Smarter Healthcare with AI. I don't know if there's social media, website. What's the best way for people to keep in touch with what you're doing?
I think it's great. The best way is my website. It's tetteh.com, just my last name.com, and you'll see all the projects we're working on, the different companies that we are involved in, and ways to contact me and keep up with the great work that me and my team are trying to do in the world, to inspire, to uplift, to teach, to lead, to serve, and also of course, most importantly, to heal and promote wealth and well-being.
Dr. Hassan A. Tetteh, MD, thank you so much. Thank you so much for being my guest on this edition of Beyond the Hype.
All right. Thank you.
I promise I deliver it like I do every time. This has been another great edition of Beyond the Hype. I'm Alfred Edmond Jr., Senior Vice President and Executive Editor of Black Enterprise. Thanks for joining us, and we will see you next time.